Good morning, students. Today we start the topic the making of Germany and Italy, whereby we start by asking the question Germany, can the army be the architect of a nation? Now, why do you think this question has been asked? Can the army be the architect of a nation? The reason why this question has been asked is after 1789, the French Revolution, it was felt that people were all powerful and people could essentially achieve and whatever they wished, and it was all you needed was to rally the people behind you, and the rest of the things would fall into place. And the and within the population there you would have a certain group of people who would be categorized as the conservatives, and there would be certain group of people who would be categorized as liberals would be the ones who would be looking for radical change, who would be the ones who would be considered to be more open to reforms, more open to change. And as we had seen in the previous videos, where the conservatives would be the one who would rather like to stick to the status quo, whereby they would prefer the continuation of a monarchy, at least in those times, but they would definitely want a strong army, a strong state, uh, and a and a very solid bureaucracy. Okay, now so that's why this question has been asked, that can the army be the architect of a nation? Because after 1815, when Napoleon had been defeated in the battle at Waterloo and he had been sent to exile in the island of St. Helena, and the Vienna Treaty had happened in 1815, that is a convention at Vienna, and that was the time when uh, uh, the ruling families of Europe had restored most of their privileges. Now, the liberals who had come into existence after the French revolutions, they did not like it because all the ruling families had essentially become very powerful once again. And then there was an uneasy sense of peace and a truce, whereby a revolution happened in 1830, whereby people wanted to bring about great reforms in Germany, and nothing happened. Then it again happened in 1848, and nothing happened even there. So the man who is credited as being the man who, for the first time, brought about the unification of Germany was the great man. He's considered to be great, actually, very charismatic. He commanded enormous amount of presence. His name was Otto von Bismarck. He is immortal in history as the Iron Chancellor, because that's what he believed in. That is the grit and the determination and fight. Okay, if it needed, dialogues have a limitation, negotiations have a limitation, but once these things don't work out, let us not waste time in just talking and talking and talking. Let's fight. So, interestingly, he was born the same year when Napoleon Bonaparte was sent to exile, or when he lost the battle at Waterloo. That is, he was born in the year 1815. Uh, when Germany was disintegrated, was just a disintegrated group of 39 states, which was cowering between the superpowers of Europe at that point in time, the Austrians, the French, and the Russians. Now, why was Germany then just a loose confederation of 39 states? You'll have to understand this fact that Napoleon had destroyed the Holy Roman Emperor, which actually was primarily about Germany and Austria. When Napoleon had destroyed it in the year 1805 and 1806, because he started it in 1805, the December month, and naturally it went on till in fact officially it was in 1806 when the Holy Roman Emperor was dissolved and disbanded. So that was a time when the Holy Roman Emperor empire was rather dissolved, and Germany was now a loose confederation of 39 states, because uh, Napoleon was responsible for it. Now, Napoleon, what very smartly did was he very deliberately designed this new structure to be a very weak one, because the earlier Holy Roman Empire was definitely a very strong and a solid structure. Now, what Napoleon did very smartly was that he divided the whole influence and the government and institution between the Protestant Prussians. Prussians, that is where, which then was the most prominent part of erstwhile Germany, or rather, which was the most prominent part of the Holy Roman Emperor in the north, that is in the northern part of Germany, and the Catholic Austrians in the south. He essentially did not allow any of these two two most powerful emperors, that is the Prussians and the Austrians, to hold too much of power. So essentially ensuring that they would always uh, disagree among themselves. Now, Bismarck was born in Prussia. Students, I reiterate, please do not confuse between Russia and Prussia. Russia is something else, a different country altogether, and Prussia happens to be a province of today's Germany, where the capital of Prussia is Berlin and the capital of Russia is Moscow, right? Yes. Now, Bismarck, he studied to be a lawyer. Okay, he was never interested in becoming a military general or anything like that. He wanted to be a lawyer, but gradually found that it was very, very boring for him. And he once very, very famously remarked it. This is something which is quoted by his fans, that he could, as a mark of his greatness, even when very, very young in his career. That is, Bismarck has had once remarked that I want to make my own music. Now, students, why do you think I'm kind of, though it's not, these things are not there in your chapter right now, but I am just kind of using this opportunity to talk about these people slightly in detail, because you have to understand that you just cannot study about revolutions without talking about the great revolutionaries, and why were they so successful in achieving certain things, which for years and years and years, many, many people had tried and they had never succeeded. Okay, so now, as we said, that Europe in 1848 was simmering with revolution. Revolutions were happening left, right, everywhere, where French King Louis Philippe had to abdicate. Metternich, one of the most powerful bureaucrats and diplomats in Europe, he was gone, because he was the one who was holding the whole European political setup after the exit of Napoleon in 1815. Okay, now, but you have to understand, Bismarck was not in favor of the liberals. Okay, he never liked liberals. Okay, he was always and always a very, very conservative and a staunch conservative. He was the one who believed in army, strong army. He was the one who believed in God. He was a very, very God-fearing Protestant. And he hated revolutionaries. Okay, so he was very, very satisfied with the status quo. Now, he was never in favor of all this. So in 1848, when rest of Europe was all in favor, or everyone was riding the bandwagon, where everyone wanted to be a revolutionary, everyone was fighting for change, everyone wanted radical change, but not Bismarck. He was solidly behind his king, and he gave some great speeches and against these liberals. Okay, so he immediately caught attention of the conservatives, and he became a hero of the conservatives. And when everyone expected the liberals to have their sway and, or rather, to win in Germany, the liberals lost. in 1849. Okay, and when the liberals lost, naturally the king rewarded Bismarck, because he was one of the very, very few people who was behind the conservatives, and because of his great personality, it is, you know, a man who was more than 6 feet 4 inches tall, great build. Moment he used to enter the room, everyone used to fall silent. So it was impossible to ignore someone as charismatic and magnetic as him. So he was called by the king of Prussia at that point in time was Frederick Wilhelm IV, and he was rewarded with the position of an ambassador in the city-state of Frankfurt. Of course, today Frankfurt happens to be part of Germany. Yes, of course it is one of the very, very large industrial centers of Germany. Very, very prosperous as well, of course. So he was sent as an ambassador to Frankfurt, whereby uh, Bismarck did such an accomplished job that he was then also sent by the same king, that is Frederick Wilhelm, to Russia, that is in St. Petersburg, as again as the Prussian ambassador, and then again to Paris as the Prussian ambassador. So naturally, this kind of exposure, Bismarck, which he was stationed as the ambassador of the King of Prussia in some of the most important and most influential and powerful centers and towns and the courts of Europe. So Bismarck learned a lot. Okay, and once he was gone, this king was gone. Bismarck was again, there was political turmoil in Prussia, and the this was the time when the liberals thought, then yes, the old king is gone, so this is the time to reassert the power. But it was impossible to do it in the presence of Bismarck once again, and that is why when the king that at that point in time, the king had to take the permission of German parliament to raise taxes, and the new king, wanted to raise taxes, but the liberals saw this as an opportunity in the parliament to show their power and influence, and they did not allow the king to raise the taxes. But it was this determination and this personality, this head, to hell with it kind of attitude of Bismarck, that he was the one who collected taxes without the approval of the parliament, and which was definitely disliked by everyone. And so this is the kind of personality that he had, and uh, he he defeated the army. He rather very tactically defeated the armies of the most powerful empires of those European empires of those times. Austrians, he defeated the Austrians. He defeated the Russians. He also defeated the French, and that is how he ensured that Germany was united in 1871. And as you have, and as you would see in this chapter, that is on the bitterly cold morning of 18th January 1871, an assembly comprising the princes of German states, representatives of the army, important Prussian ministers, including the chief minister Otto von Bismarck, gathered in the unheated Hall of Mirrors in the Palace of Versailles to proclaim the new German Empire headed by Kaiser Wilhelm I of Prussia. So Germany was finally united in 1871. Yeah. Tomorrow we would be talking about the Italian unification. Thank you.